Good morning, everybody. It is currently 20 minutes of 12 on Wednesday, December 17th, and I am here today with another reading progress update for you all. The first book I am reading is called Comfort Me with Apples by Ruth Rachel. I have read 3 other books by this author this year: Garlic and Sapphires, which was 5 stars, Tender at the Bone, which was 4.5, and The Paris Novel, which was 4. Ruth Rachel was a food critic for the New York Times in the 90s and early 2000s, and I was introduced to her books through Olive at A Book Olive. She talks about Comfort Me with Apples in her most recent video, 26 books she wanted to read in 2026, and I picked this up at the library because of her, so thank you, Olive. Currently in this book, I am on page 176, and this book is as follows. In this delightful sequel to her bestseller Tender at the Bone, a beloved food writer, Ruth Rachel, returns with more tales from love, life, humor, and marvelous meals. When readers left Rachel at the end of Tender at the Bone, she was in Berkeley, California as a chef at the Swallow restaurant. Comfort Me with Apples picks up in 1978. Ruth is still living in a commune with her husband Doug and has decided to put down her chef's talk to embark on a career as a restaurant critic. After a bumpy start at the end of her very first on-the-job dinner, her credit card is unceremoniously rejected. She is soon visiting restaurants all over the world in search of a meal to write home about. The story that follows is an affectionate look at the apprenticeship, funny, daunting, always entertaining, of one of our best food writers. Ruth Rachel's pursuit of good food and good company leads her to New York and China, France, and Los Angeles. She cooks and dines with world-famous chefs such as Wolfgang Puck and the 3-star aristocracy of French cuisine, and her accounts of these meetings range from madcap to the sublime. From a transformation lunch with MFK Fisher to a garlic feast with Alice Waters, Rachel recreates all memorable meals in which succulent details so readers will yearn for truffles in Provence and shrimp in Beijing. Throughout it all, Rachel is unafraid, even eager, to poke holes in the pretensions of food critics, making each and every course a hilarious and instructive occasion for novices and experts alike. She shares some of her favorite recipes so readers can make the dry shrimp fried she tasted in China, or the Decquoise served at a magical visit to a Paris bistro. Rachel also shares the intimacies of her personal life, the joys and heartbreaks behind the reviews, in a style so honest and warm that readers will feel they are enjoying a cozy dining table conversation with a friend. The New York Times Book Review wrote, "While all good food writers are humorous, few are so riotously, effortlessly entertaining as Ruth Rachel." In Comfort Me with Apples, Rachel again demonstrates with intimate ability to combine food writing, humor, and memoir into an art form. The next book I am reading, I picked up from the adult library shelf, the adult fiction shelf at the library. It's called The In-Between Bookstore by Edward Underhill. This book was recommended to me by Gabby Reeds in her recent video where she read books about bookstores in bookstores. And I'm reading another book from that video, which I will get to in a little bit. I will tell you what this is about. When Darby left Oak Falls for college in NYC, all he wanted was to get as far away as possible, find a community where he could start fresh, and finally forget about his childhood and his friend Michael, and just how painfully their friendship ended. Now, about to turn 30, Darby suddenly finds himself unemployed, with no better alternative, and questioning where he really belongs. He moves back to his hometown. but the changes in Oaks Falls, the planned community with his mother's new condo, the trendy coffee shop, make him feel off balance. And Michael's still here. Their relationship still distant and strained, even though they've both changed. One thing is familiar in between books: Darby's refuge growing up, an eventual high school job, where he walks into the bookstore now. Darby feels an eerie sense of deja vu. Everything is exactly the same. Even the newspapers are dated 2009. And behind the register is a teen who looks a lot like Darby did at 16, who just might give Darby the opportunity to change his own present for the better, if he can figure out how before his connection to the past vanishes forever. The In-Between Bookstore is a stunning novel of love, self-discovery, and the choices that come with both for anyone who has ever wondered what life might be like if they had the chance to go back and take a bigger, braver risk. Currently in this book, I am on page 113. The next book that I'm reading is a reread, Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This takes place in the 1990s and is a mystery that is focused around the filming of a horror movie. I will read you what this is about. Montserrat has always been overlooked. She's a talented sound editor, but she's left out of the boys' club running the film industry in the 90s Mexico City. And she's all but invisible to her best friend, Tristan, a charming if faded soap opera star, though she's been in love with him since childhood. Then Tristan discovers that his new neighbor and his cult is the cult horror director Abel Ureta, and the legendary auteur claims that he can change their lives, even if his tale of a Nazi occultist imbuing magic into highly volatile silver nitrate stock sounds like sheer fantasy. The magic film was never finished, which is why Ureta swears his career vanished overnight. He is cursed. Now the director wants Montserrat and Tristan to help him shoot the missing scene and lift the curse, but Montserrat soon notices a dark presence following her and Tristan. And Tristan begins seeing the ghost of his ex-girlfriend. As they work together to unravel the mystery of the film and the obscure occultist who once roamed their city, Montserrat and Tristan may find the sorceress and magic are not only the stuff of movies. In Silver Nitrate, Silvia Moreno Garcia conjures a tale of movie magic and supernatural suspense. Silvia Moreno Garcia became one of my favorite authors last year after I read Mexican Gothic and this book back to back. Her recent release, The Bewitching, which came out in July, was also a 4-star read for me. The next book I'm reading is a Christmas novella called Christmas at the Women's Hotel. This is a mystery, a holiday mystery novella by a new author to me called Daniel M. Lavery. And Christmas at the Beardmeyer Hotel means work. For much of the year, employment comes infrequently to Beardmeyer residents. During the Advent season, they're in high demand all over the city as holiday window dressers, salesgirls at the card stores on 42nd Street, Broadway usherettes, assistants to the Lincoln Center laundrettes of the Nutcracker, or off-season security guards working for Pinkerton at the World's Fair. Catherine explores the possibility of renovating with a younger sister moving to New York. Lucienne goes into business for herself, running a strictly social register, telephone order, mail escort agency out of her room, while Mrs. Mosler attempts to solve the mystery of the Beardmeyer's skyrocketing phone bill and frets over Christmas tips for the hotel's few remaining employees. And while the 3 gem thieves who broke into the American Museum of Natural History have been recently apprehended, not all of the stolen jewels have been recovered, and Patricia and Carol have been behaving very strangely recently. Christmas is a season of wonder and mystery after all. I am currently on page 93, and I only have 30 pages left, so I should finish this today quite easily. The next book that I'm reading is called Christmas with a Crank by Courtney Walsh, and you can't see the cover because the information for Interlibrary Loan is covering it. So this is my fourth book by Courtney Walsh. Previously by her, I have read The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley, which was 5 stars, The Summer of Yes, which was 4 stars, and My Lucky Charm, her St. Patrick's Day release from earlier this year, which was 4 stars. Doesn't happen often. A second chance with your first crush doesn't happen often. For Liam Fisher, that first crush was his next-door neighbor, Olivia Winterberry. Childhood was lazy summers, treehouse stargazing, and endless games of hide-and-seek at Pine Creek, the Christmas tree farm that's been in Liam's family for generations. When Liam moves away, he and Olivia say goodbye, the only way they know how, with a fumbling first kiss neither of them have ever forgotten. Even though 12-year-old's promises of keeping in touch feel eternal, time and distance eventually make Olivia and Liam practically strangers. 20 years later, Liam's parents announced they're retiring and selling the tree farm. 20 years later, Pine Creek is the last place grown-up Liam wants to be. Inherit the legacy not on your life. And 20 years later, grown-up Olive is stuck. Her work life is a lot like her love life, floundering. After a humiliating business failure, loads of debt, and one too many laughable first dates, she's in no hurry to put herself out there again, in business or in romance. When Olive is hired by Liam's parents to rekindle the lost magic of the farm, one final time before it's sold, she sets out to make the last best Pine Creek Christmas for the town and for a very cranky, not-so-talkative, surprisingly attractive Liam. Part of her mission? Convince the crank to fall in love with Christmas. The other part? Not fall head over heels in the process. So far, I am on chapter 15, and I am really liking the development of Olive and Liam's rekindled relationship. The next book I am reading is called Pumpkin Everything by Beth Labonte. Kathleen and I chose this book as a book we were going to pre-read for our TBR for next fall. But then we decided recently not to add anything else to the TBR because we're already reading too many books as it is. So more than leaves are about to fall. After calling off her fall wedding, horror novelist Amy Fox is left with a broken heart, a mega case of writer's block, and a serious aversion to all things pumpkin spice. When she receives news that her grandfather has broken his wrist driving through a Dunkin' Donuts, literally, straight through the front window, 500 miles away in her hometown of Autumnboro, New Hampshire, Amy has no choice but to go check on him. If she doesn't make sure that he's back on his feet, Grandpa may be moved into the assisted living, and Amy's beloved childhood home will be put on the market. Knowing she must return, Amy worries about the only thing worse than pumpkin spice, a reunion with Kit Parker, her childhood best friend, first love, an entire reason for skipping town in the first place. As the two reconnect, a second chance seems possible if only Kit weren't holding on to a secret that just might unravel everything. So I love that this is set in New Hampshire. It makes me think of A City Baker's Guide to Country Living and how descriptively that author wrote the scene about the fall fair in Franconia, New Hampshire. that's what Beth Labonte does really well in this book with setting the scene for Autumn Barrow. I am currently on page 51, chapter 9. The next book I'm reading is the last book in the Skyland trilogy by Kennedy Ryan, called Can't Get Enough. I picked this up at the library last Wednesday, and I am on chapter 42, page 333. So this focuses on Hendrix and Maverick. This trilogy focuses on three best friends: Yasmin, who is the main character in the first book, Soledad, who is the main character in the second book, and Hendrix, the main focus of this book. I connect most to Hendrix because she's an activist. I, as you all know, am an activist for disability rights, and Hendrix is a activist for this company called the Fearless Fund, which okay, wait. I'm going to read you the author's note from Kennedy Ryan because this explains what the Fearless Fund is and what they do. Let's see. More than once during my tenure at UNC Chapel Hill, I've made assumptions that I was there on quota or had somehow taken the place of a qualified white student because of affirmative action. I often discovered that I was as qualified, if not more than others, as so were my fellow black students. I'm stuck by the irony of people assuming we are not qualified to be in certain spaces when we often are more prepared and outperform expectations because we know we have to if we even want a fraction of opportunities that some may take for granted. It should be noted that the so-called legacy policies affording the children of alumni admissions advantages were not addressed in the SFFA's versus North Carolina case, but only those protective advantages for marginalized students. Soon after this landmark decision, Edward Bloom, the conservative legal activist who helmed the affirmative action case, filed a suit against the Fearless Fund, an Atlanta venture capital entity dedicated to helping women of color start businesses. His law firm alleged Fearless Fund was in violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which at its heart was intended to provide legal protection for black people subject to widespread discrimination following emancipation. This law is now being used against the very people it was designed to protect, undercutting gains and seeking to make moving forward that much harder. I knew this was the kind of fight Hendrix would gladly take on. She is the kind of woman, smart, principled, confident, generous, who would dedicate energy to helping those already trying to help themselves realize their dreams. Black Americans are not asking for things we have not earned. We are expecting a stake in something we helped build. Centuries of systemic inequities have tilted the playing field in such a way that without intention, marginalized people here in the U.S., black people here, often don't experience true equality without legal and social intervention seeking to close the gaps created by years of injustice. Some may wonder why I would approach a topic like this in a romance novel. Why wouldn't I? No one wonders about weightier issues, both being broached in literary fiction or crime novels or any other genre. Why must romance remain agnostic on the most urgent issues of the day? Nina Simone said, an artist's day is to reflect the times. Jane Baldwin spoke of writers as disruptions. I write about universal themes of humanity, love, joy, passion, hurt, healing, forgiveness, but my characters exist in specifically Oh, but my characters exist in specificity. They have particular identities with experiences that give them opinions and convictions. The things they wrestle with and fight for as much as they celebrate. That is true of Hendrix and her commitment to female founders, getting a larger share of venture capital funding than the fraction they now receive. So this makes me think of like equal pay for equal rights with women, which is something we're still fighting for this day. And Matt and I are going to be watching the Mary Tyler Moore episode that focuses on equal pay in January. So this is easily a 4.5 star series for me. All of the books have been 4.5 stars. I'm pretty much almost done with this. I should finish it today. The final book that I have that's a library book is The Frozen People by Ellie Griffiths. This is my second book by this mystery writer. The first one that I read in October, called The Postscript Murders, which was a murder based on people at a writing conference, which I gave 5 stars to. This book was recommended to me by Carly at the Pastel Bookshelf. I don't think she gave it a very good rating, but I like to read all of the books that the booktubers recommend to me to see if my opinions will be the same or if they will differ. Allie Dawson and her cold case team investigates crimes so old they're frozen, or so their inside joke goes. Nobody knows that her team has a secret. They can travel back in time to look for evidence. The latest assignment sees Allie venture back further than they would have dared to, 1850s London, to clear the name of King Templeton and is an eccentric patron of the arts. Rumor has it that Kane is part of a sinister group called the Collectors. Allie arrives in the Victorian era to another dead woman at her feet and far too many unanswered questions. As the clock counts down, Allie becomes more entangled in the mystery, yet danger lurks around every corner. Soon she finds herself trapped, unable to make her way back to her beloved son Finn, who is battling his own accusations in the present day. Could these two cases be connected? In a race through and against time, Allie must find out before it's too late. So far, I am only on page 43, so I'm not very far into this quite yet. The next book I'm reading is Yours for the Season, Emily Stone's holiday release for 2025 that came out in October. This book focuses on Melanie and Finn. Melanie hasn't had a good year. Her work life isn't what she dreamed it would be. Her best friend has moved to the other side of the world, and Finn, the man she was sure was the lover of her life, dumped her in front of everyone at her sister's engagement party. So when Finn shows up at Mel's doorstep 2 weeks before Christmas asking if she'll help him, her first instinct is to slam the door in his face or punch him. But he has a proposal for her. Spend a week of Christmas with him and his family in a vacation cottage in the Scottish Highlands. His mother is obsessed with the idea of a perfect Christmas, and to make their dream come true, Finn told his mom that he and Mel are dating again. All Mel has to do is pretend that they're back together. Mel may hate Finn, but she loves his mom, so she agrees on one condition. At the end of the week, Finn will allow Mel to publicly dump him, so that way she can get her dignity back and can experience the same humiliation that she felt. It's only a week. Mel can pretend to still be in love with Finn for 1 week, surely. Except as the festivities bring her closer than ever to Finn and his family, Mel starts to lose track of which feelings are fake and which ones are real. I am currently on chapter 13, page 124. The next book that I am reading is called The Battle of the Bookshops by Poppy Alexander. Now, I think there are 2 books with this title because Gabby mentioned a book with this title in her video that she made about books about bookstores, but I'm not sure if this is the same book or a book by a different author with the same title. So I will tell you what this book is about. The shop at the heart of a high street that stretches crookedly down a hill from Castle to the sea may be a tad run down these days, but to Jules Capelthorne, the wonky, dusty, too frail to run it alone. Jules ditches her junior publishing job in London and comes home to make the bookshop's 100th birthday a celebration to remember. Jules quickly discovers things are worse than she ever imagined. The bookshop is close to bankruptcy, unlikely to make it to its centenary celebration, and the lease of the building is up for renewal, with a 6-figure sum needed. The future looks bleak. To make matters worse, the owner of the property is the insufferable Roman Montsbleu from the posh local family who owns half of Pot Neath. The Montblues and the Capelthornes have feuded for years, and Roman has clearly not improved since he tormented Jules as a child. Fresh from a high-flying career in New York, he is on a mission to shake things up and unforgivably proves his point about Capelthorne's being a relic of the past by opening a new bookshop directly opposite, a shiny plate glass windowed emporium of books. Jules may not be able to splash the cash of promotions and marketing like the Montblues, but she has the same some ideas of her own. Plus, she has a tenacity that may just win the hearts of hearts, the most hopeless of conflicts. Let the battle of the bookshops commence. So, this book kind of reminds me of Romeo and Juliet, only instead of like feuding families, I don't know exactly even what even in Romeo and Juliet they were feuding about. They just seemed to be fighting for no reason. Even when I was watching the movie earlier this year with Kathleen, I couldn't figure out what they were actually fighting about. But this is like a modern day version of Romeo and Juliet, except instead of feuding families or with One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake, with witches and warlocks, this is just feuding bookstore owners. And it's also very similar in plot to You've Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, except without the online chat room. Currently in this book, I am on page 60, chapter 6. So not very far in. The next book that I'm reading is The Off Limits Rule by Sarah Adams. This book is on her backlist, and it came out in like 2021, so not that old. I had the honor to meet Sarah Adams in January when she was at Books A Million, doing a author talk for her book Beg, Borrow, or Steal. She is so much fun. She's so nice. I really enjoyed meeting her. The other author I had the pleasure of meeting this year was Lily King, who lives here in Portland. Her book Heart the Lover came out at the end of September, and I enjoyed meeting her a lot too. She was very nice. This book, Lucy Marshall has hit rock bottom. After failing to succeed as a single mom in Atlanta, she's back home and moving in with her older brother, Drew. Reconnecting with her support system is the right thing to do, but Lucy can't help but feel like a failure. Her 4-year-old son deserves the world, and all she can give him is a spare bedroom. but Drew is the sweetest uncle, and some quality time might be exactly what they both need to start fresh. That is, until she meets Cooper, her brother's incredibly hot best friend. When Drew senses something in between the two of them, he puts his foot down on any shenanigans. According to him, Cooper is everything Lucy should stay away from. Flirtatious, adventurous, and worst of all, non-committal. But Lucy has been getting the opposite impression so far. Cooper is a genuinely great guy, and she's starting to catch real feelings. Her whole life, Lucy has tried to do everything right, and look where that's gotten her. So what if she's something, wrong? So, these two characters kind of remind me of, Joey and Rachel when they're living together before Emma is born. Because obviously, like, Joey is a ladies' man and he's really flirtatious. So yeah, so far I'm actually really enjoying the dynamic between Cooper and Lucy, and also the family dynamics between Lucy, Drew, and I don't even know what the son's name is. Does it say? I don't remember what the kid's name is, but so far I am on chapter 11, page 106. The final book is a book I borrowed from the library at my church. It is a graphic novel I have been meaning to read called Persepolis, The Story of a Childhood. Wise, funny, and heartbreaking, Persepolis is Marjane Satrapi's memoir of growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. In powerful black and white comic strip images, Satrapi tells the story of her life in Tehran from ages 6 to 14 years, and that saw the overthrow of the Shah's regime, the triumph of the Islamic Revolution, and the devastating effects of the war with Iraq. The intelligent, outspoken only child of committed Marxists and the great-granddaughter of one of the last emperors, Marjane bears witness to a childhood uniquely entwined with the history of her country. Persepolis points an unforgettable portal of daily life in Iran and of the bewildering contradictions between home life and public life. Marjane's child-eyed view of dethroned emperors, state-sanctioned whippings, and heroes of the revolution allows us to learn, as she does, the history of the fascinating country and of her own extraordinary family. Intensely personal, profoundly political, and wholly original, Persepolis is once a story of growing up and a reminder of the human costs of war and political repression. It shows how we carry on with laughter and tears in the face of absurdity, and finally, it introduces us to the irresistible little girl with whom we cannot help but fall in love. I am on page 40, and this is the fourth book this year that I have read that is related to the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. One of those books was I Am Malala, which I read in September, and then the other two were A Thousand Splendid Suns, which I read in August, and The Kite Runner, which I read in October. All of those books were easily 5 stars. I have a feeling this is going to get the same rating, but we'll have to see. I'm not very far into it yet. So this will probably be one of my last reading progress videos for this year because it's getting close to Christmas. Next week when I do my book haul, that might actually be my last reading progress video. We'll see. I don't know. I might end up just doing a December reading wrap up on January 1st or 2nd, just to wrap up everything that I have been reading in December and going through all my ratings. But if I don't do another reading wrap up between now and the beginning of next week, I will see you guys next Friday when I do my holiday book haul. And have a great Christmas.